Hello and happy non-Cyber Monday, even though I'm here talking to you cyber because that's what we do, right? That's what we do. So I just saw something absolutely grotesque, which was the New Yorker did some kind of word search puzzle for kids about Epstein. And I want to say that shows that rag is completely compromised and sold out. I used to like the New Yorker when I was younger. My aunt used to, give me the old copies and I'd cut out the cartoons and I never understood them because they were always over my head. And for the longest time, I thought it was all the same person doing the cartoons. And now I realize that's a silly, childish, naive thing. But I guess it opens up certainly a Pandora's box and a can of really vril worms, if you know, you know. And, let's talk about how would you talk to kids about Epstein, because it's such a delicate topic, right? And they're not stupid, and they understand, more than we give them credit for. But we do still want to preserve their innocence as long as we can and as much as we can. Because if you talk to any mother worth her salt, any mother who's actually a decent mother, and I've talked to many, known many, they will say the same thing. They will say, if anyone ever hurt my child, I'd be wearing an orange jumpsuit. And they mean it. You see, they wouldn't be wearing orange foundation and lying. Any of them would take a bullet for their kids at any time if anyone ever touched them inappropriately. It would be the top, front and center issue with no wavering and no subject changing. If a mother were in the Oval Office, if a female, a real one, were in the Oval Office, So maybe that's what we need. We need a single mom to run the country because they know how to stretch a can of beans 10 ways. They know how to get the shoes on the feet and the clothes on the back. They know how to protect their children like mama bears, like wild feral wolves. So I'm not a fan, obviously, of people making a mockery out of it. All the skits and jokes. It's like reminds me of the grotesque Bob Saget roast where all the pedophiles just sat there and laughed together about jokes about chocolate milk and sore bums, So it's a delicate subject and depends on the age. But if they're very little, you can say there was a very bad man and he hurt a lot of people. And some other bad men who also hurt people and women are trying to keep that secret because they're very afraid to go to jail, which is where they belong. And if they're older, you can tell them, never to fall prey to groomers, especially online. You can really talk to them and keep those lines of communication open, because if they have affection, attention, and love enough from you and time, quality time, then they're not going to be targeted by groomers or people who are very sick and evil in the head. Anyone who would hurt a child or cover that up is complicit. And they belong not just in an orange jumpsuit or in a jail, but under the jail and in hell. So that's what I say to the New Yorker. Fuck you for that. Fuck you very much. Back to hell. For making light of a subject that is extremely dark and extremely slimy, rather than, doing something relevant and helpful instead of something gaslighty and awful. But I feel that way now about most magazines, publications, and so-called news sites, that they're all complicit and they're all cowardly because they're defending the one in the orange makeup. Not the mothers, not the children, not the future mothers or the future children. So they're coming up with as many bullshit lies and excuses and distractions as they can to try to provoke outrage. It works, it's so disgusting. It works because you can't believe that there would be so many people in so-called power who would be this cowardly and this disgusting. So again, how do you talk to children about it? Maybe in many cases you don't. They'll see it, they'll talk about it at school with their friends, let them bring you questions, answer it as, surface level as you can when they're little, because they don't need to be thinking there's boogeymen around every corner who want to hurt them. They did that to us with the clowns and the vans, the milk cartons. So, leave them some innocence, leave them a childhood. And it's certainly not about making a word puzzle out of it. That's vile. Anybody who is making games or puzzles or skits or diminishing or invalidating it is probably in the cabal and is trying, again, to be provocative and antagonistic and creating distractions so that people don't really get the justice that they need and deserve. And that means the victims. And then the justice for the perpetrators is exposure. Full transparency, not lip service to that, but actual transparency. We're not going to get that while the head pedophile is in the Oval Office. We're not going to get that because there is a lot of covering your ass happening. So if people ask you who was Epstein, what was the island, this, that, and the other, try to come up with answers that do not diminish their curiosity, but also lovingly redirect them to the fact that mom and dad love you, or mom loves you, or dad loves you, whoever, single dads, single moms, and teach them a lot of stranger danger, but without instilling paranoia. But remember that they are what matters in all this story, that the children matter. They haven't officially released anything saying that children were the targets and the victims. They keep trying to make it like it was young teens and females, and there were a lot of little boys that were hurt on that island. That is not speculation. That has been corroborated by many, many people who are credible. So don't listen to the news. Don't, let them rattle you with their obnoxious juvenile attempts at humor to lighten a dark topic. That's just deflection, and it makes them look more guilty. And, children are the most sacred and precious, vulnerable and tender offerings not offerings. They think of them as offerings, but, beings that the planet has and deserve respect and attention and love, and not to be exploited for content or clicks or for jokes. They deserve to be protected and for their innocence to be preserved as long as possible. And those who are preying on them want you to find humor so that you don't find horror. And it's understandable that dark humor is a method of coping that a lot of people use. I've used it myself. I get it. But there's nothing funny about child rape or child murder. It shouldn't be made into a word search. Okay? And that's my rant for you today, because yes, broaching these subjects with children who are the targets of these evil pedophiles is going to be a bit tricky. It's sort of like, where do babies come from, Mom? You're going to have to adjust your own value system around how much or how little you want to share with them, how you want to share it, when you want to share it. But it is important that they become educated not to be in fear, but to know that their safety is paramount and important and not a joke. Okay, have a great day, everyone.